Hey, it's Jordan, the Millionaire Millennial, and welcome back to the How to Sell on Amazon series that I've been doing for 2019. In this video, we're going to be talking about private label and all the things that you need to do to get a private label business up and going on Amazon FBA. So there's really 7 steps to selling a private label product, and these 7 steps can obviously all be divided into sub-steps, and those sub-steps can probably be divided further into even more sub-steps. So there's a lot of different steps when it comes to selling a private label product. Now you might be wondering, why in the world would I want to do that? Arbitrage sounds a lot easier than selling a private label product. And so the pros to selling a private label product is that it's really, really scalable. And you can see the last one on here is expanding. And that's really important because an online arbitrage business, I haven't really seen that many people been able to scale it past, $250,000 a year, which, for some people that's a lot, and why would you ever want to make any more money than $250,000 a year? But I have met a few people that make millions, tens of millions of dollars doing arbitrage, but it's very, very large. So for a smaller seller, selling arbitrage is usually the way to go. But for people that want to have more of an automated business, private label is actually better to get to automation level, because arbitrage can be automated fairly easily. But the thing is, the growth cap, if you will, or the amount of money you can make is hard to get past. Whereas with private label, it's not unheard of to be making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month using private label. But people doing those kinds of numbers in online arbitrage are a little more rare. So that's why people usually like to go for private label, is because it is scalable. And also when you set up everything, which takes a little bit of time and resources to just get everything built, but once you do, then it's really, really automated. It can basically be to the point where you just place an order with your supplier every few months and replenish your stock. And that's the level that you participate in your business. So you can get it to that point, and that's why people do like to do private label, but it's usually more of an end goal for people is, hey, I'm gonna start with arbitrage, maybe do some wholesale and stuff, and then I wanna build my own private label product because I wanna go completely hands off. I just wanna have to reorder stuff. So it is very nice, but it is challenging to get to. But I'm going to lay out all these different steps one at a time and explain each one as we're going down the list. So the very first step is going to be finding the product. And this is actually the hardest step. So I know it kind of sucks, but the hardest step is actually the first step. But once you get past this step, each of these steps is actually not that hard. And especially after you do it a couple times, it becomes very, very easy. But finding the right product is always a challenge, even if you're a really, really experienced seller or not. So even a new seller, experienced sellers don't have a lot of edge on you, because it's still very hard to find good products. If you're following along in that Amazon guide that I gave you in the very first video, if you haven't gotten it, you can actually get it in the link below this video. But I actually lay out, there's a lot of different ways that you can find products. So you can search on Alibaba, you can use different tools like Jungle Scout and Viral Launch. You can go to trade shows, you can just see things around the house, you can see things at a retail store, you can look at Etsy, you can look at all sorts of other random websites that they post random products. You can actually find stuff on BuzzFeed. My private label products have actually been featured on BuzzFeed before, which is pretty cool as a private label brand owner to have your product featured on a website like BuzzFeed. I don't really care for BuzzFeed's content per se, but it was cool to see my product on there. But that's a great way to get ideas for a product, is you see a product on BuzzFeed and you're like, wow, that's a really good private label idea. I'm gonna look into that more. So once you get an idea of a product using one of the many, many methods to find products, then you're gonna move into the vetting stage. And this is where a lot of stuff gets kind of filtered out. So you might find hundreds and hundreds of different products that could be potentially good, but then you vet it. So you just get rid of all of the stuff that isn't going to do very well. And this is actually kind of a lengthy process as well. And again, you kind of get an eye for these things with experience. But if I were to lay it out for you, vetting, basically you want to look for something with a really good ROI, something like 100% ROI or more after all of your costs. And the reason I say to look for an ROI that high is because with private label, there's a lot of unforeseen and unexpected costs. Always, even if you think you have everything figured out, there's always going to be something that goes wrong. And so you want to have that extra layer of margin built in from the get-go, so that when those unexpected costs do pop up, you're not like, oh, well, I was, making a 10% margin on this, but now I'm making 0, or I'm losing money. You don't want that to happen. So I like to look for an ROI of around 100 or more. And the margin, I'm not super picky about, but I do like higher margin products that, when you sell a unit, you make $30 instead of making $3. But that's just me. There's a lot of people that sell cheap stuff, and they make $1 per unit whenever they sell them, but they sell hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them a year or whatever. So that is personal decision on whether you want to sell a lot of units at a lower price or fewer units at a higher price. And obviously that leads into another point, is how often does this product sell on average? So you have to look at not just the product, but the entire market for that product. And the best way to do that is, in my opinion, with a tool called Viral Launch. You can actually look at all the different keywords for a market, and you can see how many times those are being searched by Amazon customers. Then you can see how many different products are pulling up for those results, and then you can see, okay, on a whole, and Viral Launch will calculate this all for you, which is nice. On a whole, what's the average reviews? What's the average rating among those reviews? What's the average number of sales? What's the average revenue? And so you can actually look at all of these different numbers for an entire market, and then you can get an idea, okay, on average, this whole market is, has 50 reviews on average. So that means I would need to get 50 reviews in order to really be competitive. And also, this market maybe only has 100 sales a month per listing on average, so I shouldn't expect to get more than 100 sales a month, especially from the get-go. I should expect maybe half of that out the gate on the first month, because obviously you don't have any reviews when you first launch your listing. So really, vetting is getting an idea of what is the potential that your product can do, and then deciding whether or not that's good enough for you. So there are people that are super picky, and they're like, I only will look at a product if I'm gonna make at least $100,000 a month. If I'm not gonna make $100K a month, I don't wanna sell the product. Well, I'm not really like that. I prefer products that sell maybe like, I'd be happy with a few $1,000s a month per product in profit, and that's, some people might look at me and be like, you're stupid. But I like having a lot of different SKUs that sell less than having just one SKU that sells a ton, because it's less headache. If that one SKU were to die off or whatever, then you don't lose your entire business. So I definitely like to diversify my product portfolio, if you will. The next big step is going to be sourcing, and this one, again, not super hard. I source all of my products from Alibaba, except for one. I source in the United States because it's actually a supplement, and so sourcing supplements from outside the United States is not the best idea, because the legal issues. And just don't do supplements when you're first starting. Trust me, it's a huge headache, and I'm dealing with it now. And I take Tylenol every morning just to get through the day. Sorta kidding. But sourcing pretty much anything, you can go to Alibaba.com and source it out of China, and you're going to get the best prices. And there are actually some pretty quality stuff that you can actually have made. The big things to look for in Alibaba are, you want to have a star feedback of at least a few years. You don't want to buy from a manufacturer that's got like 1 year or whatever, or even 2 years. I like to work with manufacturers that have been around for like a decade, because then I know for a fact that they're going to deliver good product in a timely manner. Otherwise, they would have already been out of business by now. Now, sometimes you can't find a good manufacturer to source that particular product. So at that point, you might lose some potential PL ideas, because you're like, I can't find a good manufacturer to source these from. But it's very simple. Alibaba, you can just send the supplier a message. You just search for the product on the search bar, and then you can just send a bunch of different suppliers a message. I recommend sending like 10 different manufacturers, just a message saying, hey, I want to buy this, and you can talk about how many units you want to buy, and you don't really need to talk about price up front, but just send a message to like 10 different people, because only a percentage of those people are going to reply, and then only a percentage of those people that reply are actually going to end up working with you. And I usually like to always get a sample of the product made, because then you can actually see the quality of the product. So I always have samples made for pretty much every private label product I do. Then once you get that sample and you're like, okay, this looks good, and you negotiate a good price that's going to be beneficial to you and the supplier, then you can say, okay, let's fire it up, let's get manufacturing. Once they're done manufacturing all the goods, then you move into the importing stage, which again is actually not as hard as some people think it is, because you can just use companies to import your products for you. So I use a company called Flexport, and they just handle absolutely everything. I basically tell them, here's the name of my supplier, here's where they are, here's how many products there are, they're packaged in this many boxes, this size and this weight. And I just get all that information from my supplier, obviously. Just send it to them, and I'm just like, okay, have at it. I made the little shipment in Amazon. They all want to go to this warehouse, this FBA warehouse over in usually it's Los Angeles because they're coming from China to California, and so I'm like, just get them all there, and then they basically handle everything else for me. So it doesn't get much easier than that when it comes to importing. I know that there are some sellers that really want to do everything themselves, and they learn about, FOB, EXW trade terms and which is better and blah, blah, blah. And I've shipped using all sorts of different trade terms. Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't make much of a difference, at least that I've ever seen. So importing, not super hard. Now, obviously, if you're importing, dangerous goods or questionable goods, like this year I actually imported some stuff that would be considered hazmat or dangerous because it contained flammable substances or whatever, and it was a little bit more expensive. So that's just one example of the whole, have an extra margin built in, because I didn't know that they were gonna flag it as hazmat. I didn't know I was gonna have to pay a little more, but the thing is, the ROI was so good on that product that it was okay. And I was like, okay, I have to pay a little bit more for shipping because it's hazmat or dangerous or whatever. It's not really, but they like to think it is. And so that was built in, so I didn't lose any money on the product. So the next step is actually selling the product. This is actually probably the second hardest step, along with marketing. They're kind of, they kind of go hand in hand, but selling the product. So what's really important when you're selling a product is having a really good, high quality listing. And people just don't understand this. You either need to learn professional photography or hire a professional photographer to take pictures of your products. Do not use the product pictures that are on Alibaba. You're not going to get any sales, right? So you need to take high quality images of your product, and then you need to have a really good keyword stuffed title. If you don't know what keyword stuff means, it's basically just like all of the keywords that people are going to be searching for to find your product. You need to make sure all the important ones get into your title. Make it nice and long. You can do, I think, up to 250 characters in your title, so just fill it all out. You need to have engaging, also keyword stuffed bullet points, all right? And then you need to have a good, well-written description. These are all baseline. All right, you cannot get away with just throwing up an Alibaba picture, writing a 3-word title, not even filling out the bullets and selling. It's not going to happen. All right, it's just not going to happen. So you actually have to take the time to write a really good listing and get pictures either taken or take really good pictures yourself. So I personally get all my pictures done by Viral Launch. They have a really great photography team, and it takes the headache away from me having to go and find a photographer and find a model, because they actually do lifestyle pictures, which is really great. They show the product in use, and those are really good pictures because you want to tell a story with your images. Right, so you have to have the white background image that's required by Amazon, but then in your other images, you want to tell the story of the product. Okay, you want to be like, here's how it's used. You want to show the potential customer, this is what you could be doing with the product. Imagine doing this. It's going to make your life better or easier, even if your product is something stupid, just like a toy or whatever. Because the thing is, the customers buy on 3 things, based on 3 things, that's it. And if you nail these 3 things, you're going to get sales, period. And that is the price, of course, the images, and the reviews. And if you can be competitive on all 3 of those, you're going to beat everybody. Now, I'm not saying that you need to sell your product at a significantly cheaper price than everybody else. But the thing is, if you can match the price of the market, okay, and sometimes you can even sell it for more than the price of the market if you've got really good images and you get good reviews, which implies that you have a really good product. So a high quality product, right, which you get around this sourcing area, you want to make sure it's a high quality, and then making a good listing, right, having good images are all imperative when you're selling private label. So marketing goes hand in hand with selling. So marketing involves running advertising, essentially. And there's a ton of different ways to advertise nowadays. So you can do pay-per-click on Amazon. So you pay for every click that you get to your product listing, and that's really easy to set up in Amazon. You just go to the advertising tab in your Seller Central and you set up a campaign. Super straightforward, not super complicated to set up, a little more complicated to run, but you can get it set up and get it going pretty easily. Then of course you can do Facebook ads, and you can run traffic from Facebook to your listing, or to a different squeeze page and then your listing. So there's a lot of different methods out there. One of my favorite methods right now is Instagram influencers, because they're really cheap and you can actually get a lot of sales. So with my supplement right now, I'm using influencers to push traffic to the page, and I'm getting a lot of sales from it, and it's working really well. So Instagram influencers is really nice because it also builds social proof. So people see, oh, this influencer's got 100K followers and they're using this product. They like this product, therefore it must be good. And that's what's going on in the mind of your customer. And so you're building social proof and getting marketing at the same time. And those things are very important when you're selling a private label product. All right, lastly is expanding and scaling your private label product, which is kind of like where people want to get to, right? That you want to scale it to hundreds of thousands of dollars every month, right? So the thing is, some products can't be scaled that far, but you can definitely expand. And what I mean by expand is not just sell on Amazon, but sell on other platforms too. You can sell on Walmart, you can sell on Jet, you can open up your own Shopify store and sell on there. So there's a lot of ways to expand your private label product as you continue to grow. But you really want to focus on these first ones first, nail all of these, and then expanding won't be all that hard because you essentially have already done it all. Expanding is just getting more and more people to look at your product, which is really just a subset of marketing. So you really just want to get good at marketing your product, and then you can expand it into these other platforms like Walmart and Jet and Shopify, etc., etc. So that about wraps up private label. I know that there's a ton of stuff, and I know this video is very long. And if you're still with me, awesome, because in the next video we're going to talk about wholesale. And wholesale is a lot like private label, but actually easier, because you usually don't have to do as much stuff. Now you will have to do some of this stuff, but usually starting right around this part, just a little very last part, you don't have to worry about all this stuff most of the time when you're doing a wholesale deal. So I'm going to talk about how to find a brand that wants to work with you, how to make that brand want to work with you, what to do to entice them to work with you and sell to you. Pretty excited about it, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye.